Okay, hello. So you want to play Path of Exile? One, because for whatever reason you can't really think of anything else you would like to play. Maybe two, Path of Exile 2 is a little frustrating. Maybe Diablo 4 has gotten a little boring. Maybe you've been convincing yourself this whole time you want to play Path of Exile 1. I have no idea. But you want to play, you're new, or you have never really beat campaign and you want to learn how to play the game. Well, here I am. I am here to give out little bits and pieces of tutorials and guides and whatnot. They're probably not going to be as in depth as other YouTubers, but you never know. I guess it really just depends on the type of attention and potential questions that I might get while playing. This so far, I do not plan for this to be a guide for like the super deep in game. This is just for people who want to get through campaign because I know when I first started out, I was suffering in campaign. All right, I'm not embarrassed to admit that I was doing really bad. So I'm going to be showing basically how the game looks, a little bit of how it works, what I'm going to be doing from my point of view, and essentially holding the hands of people who have never played the game before or who have never really beat campaign. I'm going to be playing on the PC, so in terms of controls, using a controller, I might not be all that helpful in terms of accuracy with buttons and whatnot, but the general commands of everything should be pretty self-explanatory. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to, I guess, leave a comment or check out a guide, an article, another video. I might try to put some extra helpful things down throughout the video, but that's for then. So right now, let's just get into it. Okay, so when you first open the game, I use Steam, but even if you don't use Steam and you use the actual client, it's going to look like this right now for this current league, which is in July. Right now it is July 31st as of me recording this. It's going to give you this whole rundown about everything that's happening in this current season. If you did not know, there are seasons that go on in the game, and these seasons introduce new mechanics and different ways to play the game. So there's a pretty good chance that if you try to create the same thing next season, it's either going to be weaker, it could be stronger, it might not even be available at all the same times in which it was to begin with. But for this current session, for this current league, the season is all flame. So we can look through the patch notes and see what's new and different. They leave it on their website. They also leave it on this list of things that they've changed to give you the heads up. But if you do not want to dive into all of that information and you would much rather just kind of figure it out as you go or listen to me as I go, then you can skip all of that and we will actually play. So you're gonna see log in. You'll just hit that and log in. It's going to give you a drop down selection of characters to choose from. If you have never beaten the campaign or if this is your first time, you will have no characters to choose from. So you will hit create. After you hit create, it's going to give you this area where you will see a bunch of different game types, game modes, game options. All right, as you can see, there's standard all flame and hardcore all flame. Naturally, you might not see all flame if you're joining a little later. It might have a different name. This is just the current league that's out right now. So usually you're gonna want to hit that current league setup so that you can play whatever the league is, like whichever league is going on in this moment. If you don't want to play that league, you can hit standard. If you've never played like a live service game that has different seasons or leagues or whatever it is that they want to call it, the major differences usually are that if they have seasons or leagues, I'm just going to call it leagues because it's Path of Exile, and other games they may refer to it as seasons or even something else. All it is for a certain period of time, you will experience a different way to play the game. And then once that time has ended, a new experience will come and it will rinse and repeat with different experiences each time. So during this time, it is all flame. Usually, people will pick to play the league because the league offers different items, different powers, different upgrades, and different changes. So people play to experience whatever may be different. Not only that, but much deeper down the line when you are touching the end game. Um, there are not going to be as many people who have accomplished as much as they want in the end game for a league as there will be people who have in standard. So it kind of gives you and everybody else you are playing with, or if you're playing by yourself, it basically gives you all a fresh start in the game. So everybody essentially starts over when a league begins. So usually you will see more people play league based content rather than standard. When the league is over, your character will move to the standard league. And if you want to play that character again, if you want to change things about that character, if you just want to experience the game without a potential fear of the league ending, then by all means you can play through standard. Now that that is out of the way, there are two options that usually come with picking your game mode. In this case, picking the league. I guess I should also mention there is a hardcore, as you can see to the right. Hardcore basically means if your character dies while you're playing, you lose that character forever and have to start over. Most people are not going to be playing hardcore if they are still learning how the game works and understanding what is happening. So usually for new players, it's safer to just play League. All right. So let's assume you do pick the current league. In this case, it is All Flame. You have a few options. And those options are Solo, Self-Found, and Ruthless. From my understanding, I believe Ruthless is supposed to be a much more difficult gameplay, kind of like hardcore, but I do not think you lose your character. I think all of the enemies and bosses are much stronger. To be honest, I cannot remember the exact gameplay that Ruthless offers. I believe if you hover over it, it will tell you. But me personally, I don't play Ruthless, so I do not want to give you the wrong information. The other game mode that you could play is Solo Self-Found, which means that you will be picking up items on your own. You will be essentially playing by yourself. And if you are not playing by yourself, then the people that you play with, if they find something that's useful for you, they cannot give you that item. And I believe the game gives you the option to swap out of solo self-found so that you can trade with other players. But if you swap out, you cannot swap back in. So if you are playing solo self-found, it is essentially playing as if you are playing a single player game, basically. Um, Usually, there will always be people who will play Ruthless, Solo Self-Found, and Hardcore, as well as Standard. But usually, in this case, you are most likely not going to want to click Solo Self-Found, and you're not going to want to click Ruthless. Just hit play on the current league that you have and jump right on in. All right, once you have picked your league, you will see a screen full of characters. I will note that if you have never beaten campaign and or if this is your first time playing, there's going to be a character dead set in the middle with blonde hair and she is wearing blue. You will not unlock her until you beat a certain part of campaign. So she is kind of like that mystery character that you have to beat the game once to unlock. All right. Everybody else, however, you should see. The guy holding the staff to the farthest left is the Templar. Next to the Templar, I believe, is the man. I am blanking on his name. I want to say Shadow. Next to the Shadow is the Marauder, and then beside the Marauder is the ranger. Next to the ranger is the duelist, and then next to the duelist is the witch. Now, normally, when people see games like this, they see these types of characters and they think that, I think the term is their archetype, is what actually matches their playstyle. And I would say yes and no. So, a prime example, usually in games like this, the Marauder, which would be like the warrior, is kind of like the standard character that you would pick and start the game as. You're close range, you're heavy hitting, you're learning the basics of the game, and a lot of games usually consider the warrior to be a very easy understanding way to play. But I think I will say I think everything is opinionated, right? Pick whatever it is that you think is most comfortable. Um, I will say between Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2, usually you will hear people say that ranged characters are a lot easier to play with than close range characters, and that's simply because you can hit an enemy without being hit unless that enemy is also ranged or really fast or really strong or whatever the case may be. Um, I also wanted to clarify that the way these characters work is more so set up on a system based on their skill tree. I'm not going to go super in depth with it, but the Templar, the guy holding the staff, we're going to go from left to right. The Templar is known as using intelligence and strength. The Shadow is known as using intelligence and dexterity. The Marauder is known as using strength. The Ranger is known as using dexterity. The Duelist is known as using, I believe it is strength and dexterity. And the Witch is known as using intelligence. It is more so like the game runs off of a color system. And these colors are actually your attributes. These attributes determine what kind of skills you can use, as well as what kind of gear you can use. Now, you can end up picking different attributes for these characters and using different skills for these characters way later on when you have enough points in like processing to do so. But starting off, if you have a dead set mind on playing a certain way, then picking whichever character that you think would fit that fold will probably be your best bet. The game has a system where you have different classes to choose from, but you cannot see these classes at the beginning of the game, meaning that you would need to go looking them up or seeing what other people may be doing. But if you don't want to involve yourself in all of that and you just want to play, then I would say pick whatever it is you think looks fun. When you click a character, these characters will not have a description in terms of entirely how they play or entirely what they have to offer. It, I believe, will be more so a rundown of the character in terms of their lore, and you go from there. I will also add that I will be running a witch for this specific playthrough. I will give my personal experiences on what all I have experienced in the game in this last minute and a half to 2 minutes. And then I will explain what it is I plan on doing for campaign. And once that's over, we will start into the next video where you created your character, you're in tutorial, what do you do from there, how do you play, what to expect. So I will finish this out with some opinions from my experiences. It will probably be a little much, just as a fair warning, because I like to yap. But once that's over, we will carry on. Okay, so for starters, I have played with every character, I believe, at least once. I have tried different builds that I've found online from people who are on the internet, and I have tried a good chunk of them out, but there's a lot that I have not done, and there is a lot that I have not experienced. I decided for this specific season that I was going to start out with a witch, not because of some build that somebody else was proposing, but because I figured it would be a little bit more entertaining to try things out without a guide, without help, without people shoving down my throat what it is I need to be doing, right? I thought it would be a little bit more entertaining to try some things out that I think would be fun based on the experiences I've experienced through this game and a bunch of other games like these, which would be Diablo, Path of Exile 2, The Last Epoch, so on and so forth, so on and so forth. So, for this specific playthrough that you will be seeing, I use the witch. And my game plan was to go a minion build. A build where I summon a bunch of things like a necromancer, really a necromancer, and see how far I can get with that and what all I can learn and what all I enjoy. So I plan to play that through without using somebody else's build, and what you will be seeing will be my experience playing as a beginner witch turning into a mid, maybe even high level necromancer. If you would rather play a ranger, marauder, duelist, shadow, templar, and if for whatever reason you somehow managed to finish whatever part of campaign and you unlocked, that's the middle character, the Scion. If you would rather play the Scion or any of these other characters, by all means feel free. It's just that when I go talking about experiences in terms of things in the campaign, I don't want you to be playing another character and then be like, well, I don't have this ability. How should I go about, doing this or doing that? Right? That doesn't mean that you have to follow me and play the witch, or that doesn't mean that you have to play a minion necromancer type of build. If you want to play the witch, there are a bunch of other things that you can do. I will be talking about them a little later on, not just with the witch, but essentially everyone. And hopefully, the biggest message that I can push out is just play the way that you think will be fun, because that's ultimately what's going to sell the game for you. Um, Now, if you want maybe some other video showing how to find a build that could be fun, how to follow it down to the very last detail, and how to push through with it, I can make another one on that. By all means, let me know. But this one so far will be solely on what I've mentioned. Okay, let's move on.